Thanks, Nancy. And also thank you to Jan Sarokar and Janta Parliament. It's always a pleasure to work with you all. और इस समय बहुत ज़रूरत है ऐसा एक सेशन ऑर्गेनाइज करने का, क्योंकि ये बजट हमारे ख्याल से बहुत ही पुअर बजट है. It has been a very poor budget for poor people. So I'm going to start this session by just outlining what we're going to do in the next half an hour. Jean Drez, the famous economist, has very kindly sent a video. We're going to start with that on children, after which I will speak on the public distribution system, and then Jashodhara on maternity entitlements. And then we have three excellent speakers who are going to speak on the state budgets, which were released in the last 2 or 3 days. And we think it's not only important to lay emphasis on the union budget, but also the state budgets and what they are allocating. So I will start with showing the video that Jean has sent in the last, he sent it in the last hour. Sorry, before I start, I'll also say there's a slight mismatch between the video and the audio because he has sent this from a very interior rural area. So I hope you'll still understand what he's saying. Thank you.
दोस्तों, 2021-22 का यूनियन बजट मेरे समझ में पूंजीपतियों का पक्ष का बजट है और खास करके इसमें बच्चों के साथ बड़ा अन्याय हुआ है. सोच लीजिए, पिछले साल का यूनियन बजट देखें जो 2020-21 का बजट था, उसका टोटल था 30 लाख करोड़ रुपया, जिसमें मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ वुमेन एंड चाइल्ड डेवलपमेंट का हिस्सा था 30,000 करोड़, मतलब 1%, जो बहुत ही कम था. इस साल का यूनियन बजट देखें तो टोटल है 35 लाख करोड़, मतलब 15% बढ़ गया है. लेकिन इसके बावजूद मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ वुमेन एंड चाइल्ड डेवलपमेंट का बजट 20% कम कर दिया गया है. 30,000 करोड़ की जगह में 24,000 करोड़ दिया गया है. उसी तरह स्कूल एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट देखें तो इसका बजट 60,000 करोड़ की जगह में 55,000 करोड़ कर दिया गया है, मतलब 10% कम किया गया है. और याद रखिए, दूसरी बार है कि मोदी सरकार बच्चों का बजट कम कराए. मोदी सरकार का जो सबसे पहला बजट था 2015-16 में, उसमें भी बहुत बड़ी कटौती हुई थी. इसका नतीजा क्या है कि 7 साल के अंदर अगर रियल टर्म्स में देखें, मतलब महंगाई के हिसाब से अगर देखें, तो आईसीडीएस और मिड डे मील का बजट करीब 40% कम कर दिया गया है. तो आप समझ सकते हैं कि 100 रुपया में से अगर आपके पास 60 रुपया रह गया तो आईसीडीएस सेवाओं और मिड डे मील का गुणवत्ता कितना रहेगा. तो ये स्थिति है. एक तरफ 5th नेशनल फैमिली हेल्थ सर्वे से पता चला कि 5 साल के अंदर बच्चों का पोषण में कोई परिवर्तन नहीं हुआ. उसके बाद कोविड आ गया, लॉकडाउन आ गया है, जिससे भूख और कुपोषण और बढ़ गए हैं. राइट टू फूड कैंपेन ने भी अक्टूबर 2020 में एक हंगर वर्ड सर्वे किए थे, जिससे पता चला कि 2/3 लोग ये कह रहे हैं कि लॉकडाउन के पहले की तुलना में हम लोग अभी भी कम खा रहे हैं. तो ये एक तरफ, और दूसरी तरफ बच्चों और पोषण और महिलाओं का बजट कम कर दिया जा रहा है. और फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर का बजट स्पीच अगर देखें तो उसमें बच्चों का कोई मेंशन भी नहीं है. वेलफेयर, वुमेन वेलफेयर, मैटरनिटी बेनिफिट्स, आईसीडीएस, इन मुद्दों का कोई बात ही नहीं है. तो ये बड़ा अन्याय है. इसका विरोध करना पड़ेगा, संसद में भी, जनता संसद में भी और सड़क पे भी. धन्यवाद.
To continue with that, all the surveys, including the one which has been done by the Right to Food campaign, the Hunger Watch survey, and the National Family Health Survey, all seem to show that nutrition, especially of children, has been worsening. Even before the pandemic, in the last 5 years, after demonetization, and has become even worse now. So in this situation, we would have expected big increases in nutrition because we have the world's largest hungry population, and instead we are seeing just the reverse. So I'll just speak very briefly on the public distribution system. India is now worse than Bangladesh and Nepal when it comes to child stunting. And after the budget, what is even more ominous is that last week, the Niti Aayog came out with a report where they seem to say that for the National Food Security Act, what they're planning to do is reduce the number of beneficiaries by 100 million. Now, this is very, very worrying for us because after the NFSA, we had 100 million people who are finally able to get food grains, 5 kilos only, with their ration cards. And in fact, for the last 10 years, we've been demanding that this increase by another 100 million at a minimum, because the population increase in the last 10 years, after the 2011 census, there have been no increases in ration cards. So the population has increased, but ration cards have not increased. So we've been asking for an increase of 100 million, if not universal coverage, which is what a country like India needs at this juncture. But the Niti Aayog seems to indicate that they plan to reduce the number of beneficiaries just in order to save money for the government. Also, there is an indication that they plan to increase prices. And I don't know which government would do something like this right after a pandemic lockdown when we have 45-year high of unemployment. It really seems like they have no respect for people's lifelines, whether it is NREJ, whether it's ration cards, whether it's pensions, as we will speak in the other sessions. The second thing is the actual statistics in the budget, and more than Nirmala Sitharaman's speech, it was what was behind the speech in terms of the statistics. And they show that even though there are 80 million tons of food grains in the FCI stock, she has not made any provision for universal ration cards. On the other hand, the budget for decentralized procurement program, which has really taken off after the Act in 2013, and 17 states now, not only Punjab and Haryana, but 17 states procure from their own farmers through the DCP. They give MSP and procure from their farmers, which helps to reduce the cost of transportation, the cost of storage. It's also good for climate change because it ensures that the carbon footprint is much lower. But this budget has halved the allotment from 70,000 crore in the revised estimates to 40,000 crores in this budget estimates. And there's been almost no murmur of it in the mainstream media. So this means now state governments have even less leverage to support their own farmers, right at a time when farmers are protesting in Janta Parliament for the last 2 months. In fact, right now, if you look at it, 41% of the wheat in Madhya Pradesh is procured through DCP, 100% of the rice in Telangana. So I think we need to make more noise about this, along with other agricultural unions and solidarity groups. The third thing is, if we look at universal PDS, it would require only 30 million more, as per my estimates, per month. And we are sitting on 800 million tons of food grains in FCI godowns. So if they're not planning to procure from farmers, if they're not planning to distribute it amongst ration card beneficiaries, then there seems to be ominous signs of privatization and cash transfers. That seems to be the ultimate intent of the government. During the lockdown, they had doubled the ration from 5 kilos to 10 kilos for every beneficiary. But even that has been withdrawn after 8 months. So it's real. I mean, it is. There seems to be no explanation as to why the government is stockpiling food grains if they're not planning to distribute it, or perhaps they're planning to completely change it in a couple of years. So I think we really need to support the farmers' protests and fight against privatization and monetization of the public distribution system. The only ray of hope that we have in all of this is actually the state budgets, which have done excellently well in terms of universalization in many states with their own state monies. So Jharkhand, for example, recently introduced a green ration card, and they're trying to support this also innovatively through things like a green energy cess. Odisha, which Samit will present later, also has its own nutrition budget. And literally not only the union government, but every state government should move towards having their own nutrition budget in a country which has the largest number of hungry people in the world. Lastly, just to say that Nirmala Sitharaman in her budget spoke about the poor 3 times and about migrants only 4 times in her entire speech. And I think the signs are very clear as to this has been one of the most disastrous budgets that we have seen for poor people, even though the stock market may think otherwise. So this was on the public distribution system. And now I would request Yashodhara to speak about the massive cuts in maternity entitlements.